On this episode, we finally reach the start of the Alaska Highway and begin our travels north, where we encounter stunning vistas, frequent wildlife sightings, get ourselves in some hot water, and try a few cinnamon rolls and tacos. We'll also share some of our preparation for this epic RV journey. So come along with us as we explore destinations, dents, and discoveries.
Welcome back to another episode of Destinations, Dents, and Discoveries. We do need to apologize for the lengthy amount of time it's taken to get another video out.
Wait, it's not just editing and filming and traveling and all those other things?
Well, there is that.
Yes.
However, we did encounter one of those dents that we have discussed along the way. David's back.
Yeah, so we went out on a hike, and I've had low back problems for a while. We went on, and I'm not going to dwell on this, but we went on a hike a couple of days later. I couldn't walk. I was in a ton of pain. So, as you do on the road, we found ourselves a couple of doctors, got a couple of injections. I'm feeling much better now, and here comes our next video. Hey, by the way, why did we decide to call bumps in the road dents?
Well, because we named our trailer Al Dente.
Yeah, every Airstream you have the opportunity to name your trailer, and then Airstream does this cool thing where they give you a certificate and a medallion. So we named our first base camp
Al Dente.
Donna came up with the name. Al for aluminum, Dente because, well,
it gets dented.
Yeah, it could. And so then when we bought our Flying Cloud, we decided to name it Al Dente 2. So dents just represent those things that happen as you're going down the road. Sometimes you've got great experiences, sometimes not. And that's the reason why
we call them dents.
When we last left you, we were leaving Jasper, headed toward Mile Zero of the Alaska Highway. But before we get there, we thought, hey, let's give you an idea of some of the planning that we did and some of the preparation that we did that was specific to this trip. Starting with
Scenic Highways and Byways. It's a list of all the scenic highways in the United States. They have a great section on Alaska, and it was a good starting point to just get an idea of where the roads are, what they're going to be like, and what we might encounter.
Yeah, absolutely. We also got this book, The Traveler's Guide to Alaska Camping. I'm going to be honest with you, the camping part wasn't that helpful for us. We used online resources for that, and we'll talk about that in another video. But the first chapter was really great because it gave an itinerary, a suggested itinerary, that we used to sort of sketch out our initial plans months before we ever got here. The other thing that we think is going to be helpful to us is this.
It's a milepost 2024 edition. It lists every highway, every milepost, every kilometer from point A to point B, point Z, and everything in between.
Looking at it, there's everything from gas stations to viewpoints to rest areas to pullouts and sites. And we're hoping that this is going to be useful. Dawn is the co-pilot and navigator, so she's going to have this with her, and we'll let you know whether or not this is useful. We've heard from different people that say, wow, this thing is great, and other people who say, throw it in the trash, you'll never use it. We'll get back to you on that.
We'll find out.
Everything we've read about the Alaska Highway and several of the roads, the McCarthy Road, which we'll talk to you about in a future episode, the roads are bad. Frost heaves happen when the ground freezes and then buckles the road. And so you've got these really uneven areas. Potholes you know about, but apparently the potholes are Alaska size, not even Texas size. So we were really concerned about the roads. So what did we do?
We got new tires on the trailer.
Brand new, 4 brand new tires on this brand new trailer.
Saved one of them as an extra to the extra spare.
Yeah, so the trailer has a spare, but we saved one because apparently on the Alaska Highway, good luck finding car repair and tire shops.
We didn't want to get stuck.
Right.
The spare on the truck is not a full size
Which
spare.
is so dumb, so GMC.
We bought a new tire so that we would have a full size spare.
And wheel.
And wheel.
And so those went in the back of the pickup. We always carry a compressor, but here's a tip for you, discovery that we learned in Colorado. Keep it in the truck and not the trailer. We had an experience where I must have gone over a nail. We were off-roading, looking at some mines, and one of the truck tires started to get low. I had to pump it up with the bike pump. That takes a lot of pumping to do.
It's a big family effort.
Now you're ready to go.
We went.
But it worked.
It worked.
It worked. We carry the compressor in the truck. We also went out, or I went out, and I got one of these, which is a tire repair kit, just in case, our spare and our spare and our spare and our spare and our spare go bad and we need to replace things. So we did that. What about the trailer? What did we get for the trailer?
So we got a couple mechanical parts that are hard to find in the middle of nowhere. So we got an extra macerator pump for the toilet.
Our toilet doesn't work without a macerator pump.
We got an extra water pump.
Our water doesn't work without a water pump. And we also got a sail switch for our furnace. That went out on us last winter in Shenandoah National Park, and that wasted, 12 hours of my day trying to find one and then driving a couple of hours to get it and pick it up and put it in. So we thought we should carry that with us as well. The other thing about the roads is there's a lot of gravel, and so everyone said that we needed to get
rock tamers.
So we got them. We put them on. People in Santa Monica thought we were crazy putting them on our truck. They didn't understand why we did that. But we have rock tamers on the truck. So that was just some of the preparation that we did to get ready for this trip, because you're in the middle of nowhere and you need to be prepared. Now, what's the state bird of Alaska?
The mosquito.
Right. So we got various different kinds of bug spray and several different thermocells so that when we're sitting outside, we're going to be protected from those nasty mosquitoes. Also, for these, they have a special refill that's not just for mosquitoes, but it gets the no-see-ums as well.
Right.
And we've had problems with those before.
Yeah.
I also did one other thing. I read an article that said that certain soaps that you use might attract mosquitoes, and I always seem to get bit more than you do, so I completely changed my soap. We'll see how that worked. We also got, speaking of repellents, and we got these, a couple of bear sprays so that we would be ready just in case we needed them when we were out on the road. The other thing that happens in Alaska is
it rains.
It rains.
A lot.
So first of all, I re-waterproofed my waterproof jacket. There's some detergent and waterproofing that you can put in a washer, so we did that. Hopefully didn't mess up some RV park's washing machine. And then we also got waterproofing spray for things like shoes and other things like that.
Something we left behind was our barbecue. While we enjoy using it, we've had 2 bear encounters with it, where in the nighttime, one in the daytime actually, they came and sniffed it out. So we didn't want to tempt fate.
So thanks, Mom and Dad. We left it in their house.
We left that behind.
Yeah. And if you happen to carry firearms with you in your rig, please remember you cannot bring those into Canada. So you might want to leave those behind as well. Whew.
Let's go.
That's a lot of preparation.
Let's roll.
Yeah, let's roll. Let's get back to our trip from Jasper to Mile Zero and all the way up into Whitehorse. Enjoy this episode of
Destinations, Dents, and Discoveries.
I love the way you say that.
Good morning. It is 8:15 and we have left the Whistler's Campground at Jasper National Park on our way to Dawson Creek at Mile Zero of the Alaska Highway.
So it's time to find out whether or not all of our preparations were worthwhile and see, about frost heaves and potholes and things like that. And along the way, hopefully see some wildlife and some great scenery and maybe reminisce a little about the Klondike Gold Rush and maybe read some Jack London tales. So here we go.
Today we are driving about 530 kilometers, or 330 miles, from Jasper, Alberta to Dawson Creek, British Columbia, where we'll finally join the Alaska Highway. As usual, we will be making a couple of pit stops along the way. With both a dog and an Airstream in tow, we frequently need to pause for a break. So we made a pit stop in Grand Cache. We stopped at the Tourism and Interpretive Center. And the nice thing is, The driveway is huge, so there was ample opportunity to pull in and park and walk around and stretch our legs. Our first discovery of the Alaska Highway is that visitor information centers are well set up for RVs, and here at Grand Cache, there's an indoor museum and outdoor exhibit showcasing the history of the area, including Ice Age artifacts, dinosaur tracks, First Nations heritage, fur trading, and more. Then it was back on the road, where Doug soon met a new friend in Beaver Dam, Alberta, the giant beaver sculpture that was unveiled back in 2004 as part of that city's 75th anniversary celebration. We then crossed into British Columbia and finally made our way to the starting point of the Alaska Highway, Dawson Creek, BC. What's the Alaska Highway? David is so glad you asked.
Class is in session, and let's talk a little bit about the Alaska Highway, one of North America's most legendary roads. The Alaska Highway, also known as the Alcan, is a 1,387-mile testament to human perseverance and strategic foresight. In the wake of the Pearl Harbor attack, FDR demonstrated incredible prescience. Recognizing Alaska's strategic importance and vulnerability, he issued an executive order on February 11, 1942, to build the Alaska Highway with full Canadian cooperation. This decision proved prophetic when, just a few months later, Japanese forces invaded and occupied two of Alaska's Aleutian Islands, Attu and Kiska. What followed was nothing short of miraculous. In just 8 months, from March to November 1942, more than 11,000 soldiers and 16,000 civilians carved this vital artery through some of the most challenging terrain on the continent.
Atop a new Yukon trail a few miles from the Alaskan border, men of the famous Canadian Mounted Police join in opening the new United States to Alaska Highway, one of the greatest road-building feats of all time. Completed months ahead of schedule, the new 1,600-mile Alcan Highway sees the first truck convoy begin to roll. A new Northwest Passage linking the United States with Alaska.
Today, the Alaska Highway stands as a crucial link for commerce, tourism, and cultural exchange in the far north. It's not just a road. It's a lifeline, connecting communities and a gateway to some of the most breathtaking landscapes in North America. As we begin our journey, we're not just driving a highway, we are traveling through and on a living piece of history. Well, in Dawson Creek, we stayed 2 nights at Mile Zero Park and Campground, about a mile north of town. Sites here were dirt, not incredibly level, and very close together. But hey, you don't come here for the campground, you come here to get on the Alaska Highway. Our site had 50 amp electric and water only, and the reservation system is also by email only. No deposits. We were told to reconfirm about a week in advance, and when we did, they seemed kind of surprised. The park's adjacent to the Dawson Creek urban watershed and the Dawson Trail, which made for excellent dug walks. It's also adjacent to the Walter Wright Pioneer Village, a recreation of a typical pre-Alcan village. A lot of love, care, and hard work went into its creation, but since we generally aren't fans of replicas or living history museums, we chose to skip it. Instead, we ventured about 30 kilometers north and veered off the main highway onto an almost abandoned section of the original Alaska Highway, and that led us to the Kiskatinaw Bridge. This curved timber truss structure, the first curved wooden bridge in Canada, was built between 1942 and 43 and spans 534 feet across the Kiskatinaw River. It was built to replace the original bridge that was hastily built during construction of the Alcan, and it curved to accommodate the steep riverbanks and sharp curve of the canyon. Though no longer part of the main highway, it was bypassed in 1978 to accommodate heavier trucks. This preserved piece of engineering history offers a tangible link to the ingenuity and challenges faced by the Alaska Highway's original builders. Back in Dawson Creek, we took in the Tourism Dawson Creek gift shop, toured the South Peace Historical Society, and of course, stopped to take our obligatory photos at the famous sign. Note to future travelers, as you'll see in a moment, there's plenty of room for even the biggest rigs to be in the shot. Good morning, Dawson Creek. After a little bit of work this morning, we hitched up and headed out to
the obligatory Mile Zero sign, and we parked the rig right behind it, and we helped a couple people take pictures because their arms weren't long enough. But
they didn't bring a tripod like we did.
Yeah, finally it was our turn, and away we go.
On our way north to Alaska with a bunch of stops along the way, we will see you on the road. The Alaska Highway winds its way from Dawson Creek through British Columbia up into the Yukon, crossing that border about 7 times before hitting Whitehorse, the capital of the Yukon, and then heads on up into Alaska, finally ending in Delta Junction, not too far from Fairbanks. We, however, are going to take a rather unique route. We'll be stopping for the nights in Fort Nelson, Muncho Lake, Liard Hot Springs, Watson Lake, and Whitehorse before exiting the Alaska Highway and detouring onto the Klondike Highway to go check out the gold rush town of Dawson City, then crossing the river by ferry and then onto the top of the World Highway into Chicken, Alaska. At that point, we'll be back on the Taylor Highway, and then we'll rejoin the Alaska Highway again in Tetlin Junction before heading on up to Fairbanks. On our way back down to the lower 48 later this summer, we will finish that portion of the Alaska Highway that we missed when we took our detour at Whitehorse. Just past Dawson Creek, we made yet another discovery about the Alaska Highway. We are about a mile from the Sakani River Bridge, where they're clearly doing construction because we've been sitting here for about 10 minutes in a non-moving long line of cars. And here we are. And we are just sitting and enjoying the view. This is what you can expect occasionally on the Alaska Highway. Wow, this looks like fun. There we go, really slow. Wow. We're getting a nice view of the Sakani River, at least, as we get to go by slowly. Sakani Chief River. Hold on, Doug. Yeah. On a road as remote as the Alaska Highway, in an environment just as unforgiving, road construction during the spring, summer, and fall is an inevitability. As are dramatic changes in the weather, yes, these videos were taken on the same day, as well as long stretches with no other cars in sight, and the occasional gravel sections as well.
With the road construction and gravel behind us, we arrived at Fort Nelson's Triple G Hideaway, where we found a nice laundry facility, saloon and restaurant with good food and friendly service, and big wooded full-service sites. Once settled in, we took our photo at a historic mile 300, and then found our way to the Fort Nelson Heritage Museum. The museum, the home of the Fort Nelson Historical Society, has a wide-ranging collection, including preserved specimens of local wildlife, including this albino moose, an authentic mounted Mountie, and the original 3 bears. Inside, you'll also find some fascinating exhibits on everything from generalized local history, the history of oil exploration in the area, and the construction of the Alaska Highway. Outside, there's even more exhibits, including classic cars and other highway memorabilia, and even some original construction vehicles from the building of the highway. After a nice meal at Triple G, a peaceful slumber, and a bit of work in the morning, we were back on the road again. We are headed out of Fort Nelson on our way to Muncho Lake. We had a great overnight.
We stayed at Triple G Hideaway, which was a really nice, full hookup RV park.
And very full RV park.
Yeah, of course, by the time we left, there were like 3 people left. Yeah. I think there was like 100 spots. And we also went to the Fort Nelson Historical Society Museum, which was interesting. It's a very eclectic, varied collection of all sorts of memorabilia from Fort Nelson, from the Alaska Highway to the veterans of World War I and everything in between and since. And if you're headed this way, several gas stations, supermarket, fast food if you're looking for that, several coffee houses, and the Triple G Hideaway restaurant.
Yes.
Now we're headed to Muncho Lake Provincial Park, and along the way we might stop for a cinnamon roll. Stay tuned. Just north of Fort Nelson, we're passing through some burned areas of the forest. Up until a short time ago, there was a wildfire that was in the area, and actually Fort Nelson was evacuated. We were a little bit concerned that we would have to detour around. As a matter of fact, we met some people in Jasper, some travelers from New Zealand who had to detour around. Now, obviously, inconvenience for us, but really just a potential tragedy for the people of Fort Nelson. We were talking to our waitress last night at Triple G Hideaway, and she was telling us about her experience of having been evacuated for 18 days and living in a house with like several generations of her family, and she's not used to doing that. But thanks to strong firefighting efforts, they were able to get the fire under control, let the folks come back to their town, and then let people like us be able to travel up the Alaska Highway and make our way to Alaska. So thanks, firefighters. Great job.
Earlier, I mentioned cinnamon buns. While perusing the mileposts, we learned that lodges along the Alcan have a bit of a friendly competition surrounding cinnamon buns. So we determined to stop and give some a try. By we, I mean me, since Donna is unfortunately allergic to gluten. The first of our cinnamon bun stops was Tetsa River Lodge, which calls itself
the Cinnamon Bun Center of the Galactic Cluster.
The Food Network judged their buns among the top 50 iconic desserts in North America in 2019, so that might be why I had to wait a little while for mine to come out of the oven, so I perused their store. It came out hot, gooey, and super tasty. Even Doug wanted a bite. This was a great cinnamon bun, but I'll withhold my final vote about which is best until we get to the end of the highway.
After we left the Tetsa River Lodge and my cinnamon bun, we entered the Stone Mountain Provincial Park, and the views just got incredible. We've seen a lot of wildlife today. I think we've seen 3 bears. I have lost count of the number of deer, caribou, and Stone Mountain sheep were all over the place as we were leaving the provincial park just after the highest point on the Alaska Highway. So it's been just a spectacular day. Just to give you an idea of what some of the road views look like. It's just been crazy beautiful all day long. Oh, I don't want anybody to think that I'm operating the camera while I'm driving. Donna's driving. Say hi.
Hello.
After Stone Mountain Provincial Park, our next stop was Strawberry Flat Campground at the impossibly green Muncho Lake. While most of the sites here are first come, first served, we had reserved a beautiful lakeview site months ago and settled in quickly. We then headed to the nearby Northern Rockies Lodge to fill up on diesel, check out their float planes, and the lodge. David was enamored of this 2-story hand-carved map of the region that is said to display the location of its float planes throughout the day. Then it was back to the campground to enjoy the Zen garden-like silence and the display of nature's glory.
Good morning. We just left Strawberry Flats Campground at Muncho Lake, and it's difficult to leave because this view just gets better and better the more we drive. So hopefully I've captured it on video so that you can see it, but if you come to the Alaska Highway, make sure you come to Muncho Lake.
Another discovery on the Alaska Highway. When they say falling rocks, they mean it. While Muncho Lake was difficult to leave behind, the short 1-hour drive to Liard Hot Springs did not disappoint. fact, it went by in a flash. A unique feature of this campground is that it is entirely surrounded by an electric fence to keep bears and wildlife away from the campers. The fence stops at the boardwalk leading to the hot springs, so we made sure to keep watch as we headed to the famous pools. While First Nations peoples knew about and used these hot springs for centuries, the area was developed for the public use after its use by American soldiers working on the Alaska Highway. Today, it is a well-known and loved resting spot for Alaska Highway travelers.
Okay, this place is a trip. Well, it's just a bunch of people sitting in a really hot pool.
Well, it's hot over there. It's less hot over there.
And it's really warm right here, too.
Too warm for you?
Yes.
And we're going to smell like rotten eggs
Yes.
until we take a shower.
But again, it's nice because it's not hugely populated. I can only imagine when it's the human soup.
It is human soup. We just need like some carrots and some celery.
Yeah, totally.
Now add sliced parsnips, potatoes, asparagus, onions. Huh? Oh, okay. Skip the onions.
But this was fun. I'm glad we did this.
Absolutely. I'm going a little bit closer to the source, and it's getting it. The informal challenge among the hardier and more adventurous bathers at Liard Hot Springs is to place a rock as close as possible to the scorching water source. This feat tests one's endurance as temperatures near the origin reach a searing 52 degrees C or 126 degrees Fahrenheit. I managed it, but it was the hottest water I've ever experienced, far beyond any hot tub, and pushing even the hardiest to their limits.
Well, another day, another couple hundred kilometers out on the Alaska Highway, just as you do. We left early this morning. We're super early this morning, 7:30. That's good for us. From Liard River Hot Springs, where last night we had a pleasant soak.
Yes, and we were lucky enough a couple days ago that David found a campground that we could reserve.
Because I hate first come, first served campgrounds. They make me nervous.
So we got a great campsite and had a nice soak in the hot springs. It wasn't too crowded, which I appreciated. No human soup happening. And we're on our way to Dawson Creek, which is a first come, first served campground. So that's why we left early, to hopefully, as soon as the checkout time is over, we're going to sneak in and see if we can snag a spot.
Yeah, and within 2 kilometers of leaving the park today, we saw our first 2 bears. And
our first 2 bears of the day.
And
we're up to 20.
And 5 bison. 5?
5 bison.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're paralleling the Liard River for a little while. It's a huge river. It's like Mississippi size. As we wind our way up the Alaska Highway, which, by the way, has been surprisingly smooth so far the whole way. And now, of course, I've jinxed it. We're going to hit frost heaves and all those kinds of things. So here we go.
Just a short distance down the road, and there was another herd of bison. And then this guy. It was a real Canadian standoff. Eventually he moved, deciding we just weren't worth the effort. A few kilometers down the road at historic mile 570 is Allen's Lookout, with a commanding view of the gorgeous Liard River. The view is so commanding, in fact, that a band of outlaws once used this very overlook to attack and rob riverboats. There's a picnic area nearby with a cairn dedicated to the surveyors of the Alaska Highway, and also a site where a fellow traveler had warned of a problem bear in the area. Cautious and careful, we got back in the car and headed on down the road. And that's when we crossed the Yukon border. It felt like a real milestone in our journey, so we had to take a selfie.
Hi.
Then it was on to Watson Lake and the Watson Lake campground, where first come, first serve was no problem. We got a great campsite, and most of the sites were available till about 6 p.m. The gorgeous trees in our campsite were a bit too tall for Starlink, so we headed over to the Visitor Information Center to use their Wi-Fi for work. Once our work was done, it was time for Watson Lake's historic signpost forest. Well, welcome to the signpost forest.
here in Watson Lake, Yukon.
This is crazy. I thought there'd be a few signs, but there's
More than 100,000.
There's more than a few.
So it started during the construction of the Alaska Highway when one individual felt homesick and he put up a signpost saying, that's how far it is to where I live. And now it's this, more than 100,000 signs from people all over the world who just come here and want to commemorate the fact that they came up the Alaska Highway. We were unprepared.
We were unprepared, but it's a variety. Some people put license plates. Some people made signs. Some people, I saw someone, it was like a cake pan, and they had like stamped in what they wanted to say. So it's the gamut.
So we're going to go back and figure something out, and then we'll come back tomorrow, and we'll put up our own sign. We'll let you know what we do. Well, not wanting to miss out, we got creative, fashioning our own sign from an old New Mexico license plate. It's a fitting tribute to Santa Fe, where we began our full-time RVing adventure in March of 23. As we added our makeshift sign to the thousands already there, we couldn't help but feel part of something bigger, a community of wanderers all drawn to the call of the North. With our contribution to Watson Lake's quirkiest attraction in place, it was time to hit the road once more. "130 kilometers after leaving Watson Lake, we made a stop at Rancheria Falls. The park has outhouses, garbage bins, a kitchen shelter, and an interpretive boardwalk that's dog-friendly and leads to a pair of beautiful waterfalls. The falls are about 100 meters or so apart, with the larger cascading over a series of rocky terraces and the smaller one flowing down an adjacent rocky chute. The water moves quickly over the dark, uneven rocks, creating a lively display. Like much of the Alaska Highway, the forest and adjacent road are silent, with just the sound of the rushing water creating a peaceful, natural ambiance that was perfect for our short break. About 180 more kilometers down the road, and we stopped at Johnson's Crossing at historic milepost 836 for the second stage, our Tour Day Cinnamon Roll. So we've already had the cinnamon bun from
the Cinnamon Bun Center of Galactic Cluster.
Now we're at Johnson Crossing. They told us in Watson Lake that this was the best cinnamon bun in the world. Meh. The cinnamon bun at
the Cinnamon Bun Center of Galactic Cluster
was gooey and like smooth and really, really tasty. This one, first of all, it's got raisins, which I didn't expect. Second of all, it's got some sort of crunchy caramelized thing, which is fine, but it's too crunchy. And so, I mean, it's good, but I think if I hadn't had
the Cinnamon Bun Center of Galactic Cluster,
I would like it more. So, yeah, it's all right. I mean, I suppose it's worth a stop, because where do you get homemade cinnamon buns in the middle of nowhere? But otherwise, nothing to write home about.
Another 130 kilometers and we arrived in Whitehorse, the capital of the Yukon, where we stayed at High Country RV Park, which is convenient to downtown Whitehorse. Sites are dirt with full hookups, but be prepared to be packed in like sardines. We then headed out to Whitehorse's most famous tourist attraction, the SS Klondike, but found it was under restoration. The Klondike is a historic sternwheeler that has been preserved as a reminder of the region's river transportation heritage during the Klondike Gold Rush. Downtown, we stopped in at the Yukon Visitor Information Center to inquire about the top of the world highway, and we were told it was good. On the Canadian side, other attractions in Whitehorse include the Yukon Transportation Museum, home to what is said to be the world's largest weather vane, and the downtown riverfront, which is also home to the historic White Pass and Yukon train depot. After a long day on the road, we were more interested in tacos and margaritas at La Cara. Our journey along the Alaska Highway pauses here, but the adventure is far from over. In our next episode, we'll veer off the Alaska Highway just north of Whitehorse onto the Klondike Highway, making our way to historic Dawson City, where we'll encounter both sourdoughs and sour toads. From there, we'll tackle the famed Top of the World Highway before finally crossing from Canada into Alaska, where we'll spend our first night in the quirky little town of Chicken before heading on to Fairbanks. See you next time!